Bellydance Crash Course is a multi-level DVD that starts off at the absolute beginner level and becomes progressively more difficult. For the beginner level, I provide a comprehensive breakdown that includes the physiology of the movements, safety tips, and common mistakes. By the end of this section, you'll have an understanding of hip bumps, hip drops, lower ab locks, hip squares, various sized hip circles, undulations, classic figure eights, Mayas, flat figure eights, snake arms, hand eights, and lotus hands. For the advanced beginner, each movement is extensively drilled so that you can get it into your muscle memory. During the drills, you're encouraged to work at your own level as you're gradually shown more difficult variations. For the second half of the DVD, we crank up the difficulty to the intermediate level by putting the movements together into combinations. Each combination is slowly and extensively explained, then practiced to slow music. And once you've mastered the combination slowly, we practice it again to a lively beat. So the first thing that we need to talk about is your basic belly dance posture. So I'm going to turn sideways so you can see here. So we're going to call this home position. This is just the starting point from all the moves, and it is with my knees nice and bent. Right now I have both feet flat on the floor. My knees are nice and bent, and then what I'm doing is I'm tucking my pelvis. I'm tucking my lower abs, so my back right here is nice and long and flat. Normally, when you're just standing around, you have an arch in your lower back right here. You want to minimize that arch as much as possible. So the whole time that I'm belly dancing, I am pulling these lower abs in, and I am working my quadriceps here because my knees are nice and bent. And if I was just to stand in this position so far for 5 minutes or so, I would really start to feel it in my legs and my lower abs. And so you really need to be cognizant of the fact that you should be working even when you're in between moves in a resting position. Now let's talk about the rest of the body. Up here, these are the upper abs, and you don't want to have them locked out, but you can engage them a little bit so that all of this is ready for action. It's not just, you know, blah. You want to have it pulled in and ready to be engaged and used. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my chest. Now a lot of people, when you tell them to lift their chest, they do some sort of an arch like that and just think that bringing your chest forward is lifting your chest. That's not the case. When you lift your chest, you want to think about someone pulling your sternum upwards like so that your entire upper body is up and lifted away from your lower body. You want to make your mid area as long as possible so that it can maximally show off all of those moves that we're about to do. The first move that I'm going to teach you is just hip bumps, and hip bumps are one of the very easiest but also one of the most technical things that you can learn how to do. So let me explain. Again, I'm starting off in my home position here, and a hip bump just kind of looks like this. I'm just pulling the hip from side to side. Now if you have a look at my knees, as I'm doing this move, my knees are going back and forth. Of course, in home position, my knees are nice and bent to begin with, and I'm never ever going to lock out my knees. And so as I'm doing this move, I'm just bending one knee a little bit more. When I bend a knee, it enables my hip to come down. Now, it's not just all in the legs or all in the feet. It is also a movement that you're using all of these muscles up here to help make that movement nice and sharp. Look what happens if I only just use my legs to do that movement. Look, it's a little bit more wobbly, it's not as sharp, it's a little bit more mushy, and this could be a look that you want sometimes, but right now I'm teaching you to do nice, sharp hip bumps. Now, to get them nice and sharp, what I'm doing is I'm engaging my glute right here, my booty muscle. And so what I'm going to do is when I push that right hip up, I'm going to tense my right glute, but my left glute is going to remain relaxed. And so in order to get this to happen, you need to practice isolating your glutes, right glute, left glute, like that. And I actually recommend doing it as you're driving in your car, as you're driving to work. Turn up your music and just practice doing glute isolations. And once you start to get control of those movements, you'll find that you'll have a lot more control over your hips as well. So from here, we can do a couple of different things. If you look at my feet, all I'm doing now is I'm just putting one toe on the ground. And when I'm just putting one toe on the ground, it changes the look of the move in my hips. I can do that on the other side, right? I can kind of change the arms up a little bit here. And my supporting leg, this leg right here, I'm going to pull this pant up so you can kind of see it. It's really bent. Actually, I'll pull the other one up so you can see exactly what's going on with my knees. So my supporting leg is nice and bent. I'm not locking it out. The second you lock out your legs, it becomes really hard to do those hip movements. So another thing that you can do that involves sharp hip isolations is you can do lower ab locks. So starting from our home position here. Now remember, our home position has our pelvis already a little bit tucked, but what we're going to do is we're going to enhance that tuck for this movement. So we're just going to pull right there. It's as if someone's going to punch me in the lower stomach, and I'm just engaging against it. Pull, release. I'll put my hands up here to get them out of the way. Pull, release. Pull, release. Now when I release, I'm not releasing all the way. I'm just releasing kind of more to a neutral position. Pull, release. Pull, release, pull, release. So now if we put those two moves together, we're going to build a third move, which is a hip square. And a hip square I'll show you and then we'll break it down. Again, I'm starting in my home position. My knees are nice and bent. I'm going side, forward, side, back, side, forward, side, back. And so what I'm doing when I'm pulling up to the side, again, I'm straightening that leg a little bit, but not locking it out, of course. So I'm just straightening it a little bit to pull it up, or to push it up, and I'm engaging that glute. And then to bring it forward, it's all right here in my lower abs, boom. And then to bring it to the other side, again, I'm straightening up that leg, I'm engaging those glutes, and then to the back, I'm not doing anything, I'm just kind of relaxing and going into my neutral position. So we'll drill those three movements a little bit in this next section. So let's go. So remember to keep those knees nice and bent, keep your feet flat on the floor, and really bend and straighten your legs while using your glutes. Take a couple steps back. Just feel the shifting of the weight. Take a couple steps forward. Try to make it as sharp as possible. Keep your pelvis tucked, your lower back nice and long. Your lower abs are engaged as you just play with walking around and shifting the weight. You can lift one heel up off the ground and see how that changes the look of the movement. You can speed it up. I just have that toe on the ground and I'm not putting too much weight on it. I am pushing a little bit on it to help me push my hip up, but mostly I'm pulling it up with my abdominals. As I come around in a circle, I'm just taking tiny little steps, keeping that one foot up on the ball. Both heels flat again, check your posture, and then other toe to the floor. Most important, maintain your posture. If coming around in a circle is a little bit too difficult, that's okay. Just stay where you are for now. You can always build on it. We can practice moving the arms around to kind of get the mind off of those hips. Here we are, traveling to the side. I'm keeping one heel up. And back down to flat. Let's speed it up a little bit into a shimmy. The shimmy is a little bit looser. I'm not using the glutes as much. A shimmy is more knee driven. And let's walk it forward again. And a little shimmy. Stay relaxed in the upper body. Make sure your chest isn't moving. And back to sharp, sharp, sharp. As that toe comes up, really think about lengthening through your torso. You should be able to move your foot around to the side and to the back without missing a beat in the hips. That is a more challenging thing to do, so don't be frustrated if you don't get it your first time. Just keep practicing. Once again, we're moving the foot around, trying to keep the beat even in the hips. And try to keep it nice and even and sharp as you bend your knees and come down into a plie. Let's do that shimmy again. And by this point, it should be a little bit easier to shift your weight and take a few steps while you're getting those hips going. And let's switch gears and we'll do lower ab locks. You can bring it down into a plie. If you're just working on getting the basics down, you don't need to go into the levels. You don't need to go into the plie. If you do go into the plie, think about not sticking your butt out. You want to come straight down. If you start to tilt your shoulders forward and stick your bottom out, then you're probably going down a little too far. Let's do those hip squares. Keeping my posture, my upper body is open, my shoulders are relaxed, and I'm using my knees, my lower abs, and my glutes to get this hip square going. Speed it up. It's a nice, very small internal movement. Don't force it to become too big. Nice and small and sharp is what we're going for here. As we slow it down and switch directions, we'll do another quick posture check here. Am I tucking my pelvis? Is my lower back long? Are my knees bent? Is my chest open? My upper body relaxed? And as you speed it up, try not to lose any of the integrity of the movement. Let's shake it out with a nice loose shimmy. Traveling to the side one more time. Again, keeping it nice and sharp. Those knees are nice and bent. Remember, if your legs are locked out, you're not going to have as much hip control. So do yourself a favor and really bend your knees. Now, here's a tricky one. The hip is dropping on the beat, and every other drop, I'm doing a little kick. Again, it takes a little bit of practice, but when you've got it, you can speed it up. You can try it on the other side. Nice and sharp. One hip drop without the foot, one hip drop with the foot. And once you've got that under control, again, you can speed it up. Let's take a moment, let the brain relax. We'll go back into those regular hip bumps and come up on the toes into releve and flat foot. And when you do releve, make sure that you keep your knees nice and bent. Don't straighten out the legs when you do that. You need those knees bent to get those hips moving, remember. And give the calves a nice workout. You want to stay nice and strong in your core as you come up. And another big shimmy. Good job. And so to start talking about undulations, we're going to get down on the ground and we're going to do a little exercise down on the ground to help get our bodies ready to do those undulations. I actually learned this exercise from one of my first belly dance teachers, Nana Candelaria. So thank you, Nana, for this exercise. So what I'm doing is I'm in a nice cross-legged position here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to lean forward. And right away, you'll notice that you're getting a nice stretch back here in your glutes. And this is actually just a great stretch like this. But what we're going to do is I'm going to plant my hands on the ground and I'm going to do kind of a body roll coming up, leading with my head. Let me show you. And once I get to here, I'm going to roll down back into that position and do it again. Doing a little push and roll. I'm really using my arms to allow me to stabilize myself so that I can get a nice big movement. I'm trying to just move one vertebrae at a time. I'm doing it very slowly, warming up that back. And roll. One more. You push yourself up and roll. Now we're going to take this movement and we're going to do it sort of at a medium size. And so I have my hands braced on my knees, and again, it's just a medium-sized movement. I'm going to scoop forward and using my hands to brace myself, roll back. Scoop and roll, and feel how you really are using one vertebrae at a time. First, I have my upper back starting to round, then my middle back, my lower back. up, and roll. And when you get that movement into your body, you can make it nice and small. At first, you can kind of play with your hands, pulling your hands, guiding your body into that position. But then when you get a little bit better, you can just put your hands up and in this cross-legged position. You can do your undulations. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand up and we're going to try them in the standing position. So after you've stood up, I encourage you to find a nice wall to stand against. You want to stand, I don't know, 6 inches away from the wall. And what we're going to do is that same sort of movement. I'm going to first scoop my chest forward, and then I'm going to put my chest back against that wall. So I'm totally leaning back onto my shoulders. And now I'm just going to slowly, one vertebrae at a time, roll down so my entire back is against the wall. And coming back up. And again, bend those knees, roll. And again, it should get really difficult towards the mid-back to get one vertebrae at a time against that wall. It really requires a lot of abdominal strength. Let's do it one last time. So between those two exercises, you should have a pretty good feeling for what an undulation feels like. So now we're going to step back into our center of the room and we're going to just try them freestanding. So now we're going to practice our undulations freestanding. We're going to start off and we'll do just sort of medium-sized undulations, and then we'll practice bringing them in and making them much smaller. So in order to do sort of a medium-sized undulation, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to step one foot forward, and as I'm doing that movement, I'm going to be rocking a little bit back and forth, shifting my weight from foot to foot. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to scoop forward, roll back, step back. Scoop forward, roll back, forward, back. And I can actually take it around in a circle. And travel really anywhere I want with my undulations because I'm shifting my weight from foot to foot. We're gonna practice on the other side too. You can also do them just with your feet planted in the ground, and you can make them really small. And also, you can bring them back the other way. When I bring them back the other way, I'm starting with my knees nice and bent. I'm engaging my lower abs, pushing them forward, and then rolling everything on top of that. Everything is just coming forward. So let's practice that to music. Breathe through it, really stretch and open the chest up forward. And as you're rolling back, bend your knees a little bit to help the movement along. And remember to keep in mind rolling back against that wall. Down to up undulations. Bend the knees, start by pulling the lower abs. Back the other way. Let's practice transitioning back and forth between these two. If it's too much to switch off between them right at first, that's okay. Just go ahead and do one at a time and gradually work in the transition. Now we're going to step one foot in front of the other. We're doing those up to down undulations. Now taking them fast like this in a circle is a little bit more difficult, so stay in place if it gets to be too much.
And let's speed them up so that they look more like little belly rolls. All right, let's do it really big again. Switching back and forth between up, roll, down, and down, roll, up. When you step forward, the chest comes up, and as you step back, you're rolling down. Really play around with taking those little steps. Travel in every direction, back and forth, forward, back, round in circles. And notice how at first it might seem like a lot to take a step in addition to the undulation, but actually you can utilize that step to help your movement along. And ultimately, when you get the rhythm down, it does become easier with this step. Let's do more down, roll, up. Up, roll, down. Down, roll, up. Up, roll, down. It's a small movement. You're not straining your back at all. And let's speed it up and we'll take it in a circle again. Remember to keep breathing. Don't hold your breath when you're doing those fast little undulations. Try to breathe through it. Your breath is very powerful in helping you to execute those movements. When you hold your breath, you become locked out and stale.
First thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our hands and we're going to just place them as if you're placing them on a table or something, on a shelf, whatever, in front of you, and you want to keep them there and you don't want them to move. As right now we're just going to practice rolling that shoulder. Now the tendency is to make that arm move also, right? But we're going to just try to isolate that shoulder movement for now. Just get it a little bit warmed up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take that shoulder roll and we're going to let go with the hands, and we're going to go, we'll just do one side first, shoulder, elbow, wrist, release. Shoulder, elbow, wrist, release. Now it's really important when you're doing this to make sure that your palm stays down. And it's really unnatural to keep your palm facing down if your elbow is rotating upwards. You're going to be in this weird kind of position. But that's what's going to give that weird floaty, bendy illusion to this move, is if you keep that palm down. Let's try the other side. We're going to go shoulder, elbow, wrist, relax. Shoulder, elbow, wrist, relax. And you don't need to lift it too high. You don't need to lift it above your shoulder. Just a small movement will do. And notice how my hand is acting like it's painting that wall with brush strokes, so gently tracing up and down. And now you can put both sides together. You can lift one arm while you're dropping the other. And for me, the arm that's being lifted is the arm that is doing something a little bit funny. And so I just think about the up arm. The arm that is going down, it'll go down on its own. Doesn't need any special thought. And you can do this very small and very wavy. And make it a little bigger. And I'm going to walk my arms up above my head now. And from here, I'm keeping my palms facing out. And so in order to do this move, I'm going to just break at the wrist there, and just practice breaking at the wrist like this. That's all my wrists are doing. My palms are not turning. So you can just bring them from side to side. Good. You can make it very graceful, like a tree in the wind or something. You're just kind of floating from side to side. You can walk them back down into that snake arm. And your arms are probably getting a little tired, so shake them out. And next, what we're going to do is just a little flourish with the hand. And so it's basically a figure 8 with my fingers. And so to break it down, I'm going to start off with my hand here, and I'm just going to kind of go, hi, like, hi, Mom. And then we're going to flip it, and then you're going to draw like a smiley face with your fingers in the air. Flip it, hi, Mom. Flip it, smiley face. Flip, flip, and make it a little softer. This is something that you'll really see a lot in Spanish dancing, but you can do little accents. I wouldn't go too crazy. A big mistake of beginners is just to have like this whirlwind of a hand that's going around the whole time. You want to keep it nice and controlled and slow, and you want to use it sparingly. You do both at the same time. You bring them up. Bring them out. Good. Another hand thing that I wanted to show you is called lotus hands. And this one's a little tricky. I'm going to turn around and face the mirror while I do it because I think it'll actually help you to pick up the move. So I'm going to turn around. I'm going to put my hands up above my head here. And so the move is this. Okay, and so in order to get that move, I'm starting off here, and what's going to happen, what's important to remember is that I'm always going to stay connected kind of at the wrist here. And one thing that never happens is a hand never goes through this space. Your palms are facing, or your fingertips are going to be facing up the whole time, and they're always going to be joined at that spot. Now there's 4 points to this. So number 1 is here. Number 2 is fairly easy. I'm just going to rotate my right hand forward, my left hand back. Okay. And then 3 with my backs of my wrists together. Now here's the hard one, the last one. My right hand's going to flip back. My forward hand is going to turn over, and we're back here. Rotate. It takes a lot of practice. This next section is all about figure 8s. There are 3 different kinds of figure 8s, and we'll start with the one that I call the classic figure 8. Some people also call it a taksim, but I will call it a classic figure 8. So again, we're starting off in our home position, and make sure those knees are nice and bent and those lower abs are engaged. Of course, you're lifted, your chest is open, your shoulders are down, your head is up, all of that. And so what I'm doing is I'm bending one knee to make that hip go down, and I'm going to pretend like there is a pencil attached to my hip and a piece of paper right here, and I want to draw a nice even circle on that piece of paper, starting with it going down. So I'm here, and I'm going to drop that hip, push it down, and back to the middle. Let's try that again. Drop it, down, out, back to the middle. Now, as I'm doing that movement, what I'm doing with my feet is I'm keeping my feet nice and flat on the floor, but I'm shifting my weight a little bit. As I'm pulling that hip up, right at this point of the movement, pulling the hip up, I'm pushing my foot against the floor to help me get a rise up. So let's do the other side. Drop and push. Now, I'm talking about using your feet just to help you get that initial movement. You want to be careful not to become too dependent on your feet, because eventually you'll want to be walking around and doing different foot patterns and stuff that's going to maybe conflict with what you want to do with your hips. Now let's put both sides together. We're going to drop one side, bring it out, and back to the middle. Drop the other side, back to the middle. Let's just get the feeling of that. And my weight is kind of swaying back and forth from foot to foot for now, but I'm also engaging all of these muscles here, to pull that hip up as well. And remember, you want to keep your hips tucked. You don't want to arch your back. If you arch your back when you do this movement, you're going to cause a little bit of pain in your lower back. So that's extra incentive to have good form. Make sure your knees are nice and bent. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to switch these. And so I'm going to have them go in the other direction. So they're going to go up and around, up and around. And these sometimes are called reverse figure eights. I call them Mayas. Pull it up and push it out. Again, my weight is shifting from foot to foot, but I'm careful I'm not lifting my heels off of the ground. Again, stylistically, you might choose to later on, but as you're learning, it's good not to become too dependent on other parts of the body to get these hips to do this. Now remember, engage your lower abs. If you feel anything in your lower back, it's because your lower abs aren't engaged enough. If that's the case, also, you can probably bend your knees a little more. It's easier to engage your lower abs if you have nice bent knees. So that's the Maya. And then I'm going to show you a flat figure eight. So it's just exactly a figure eight, but on this plane here, right? So what I'm doing is I'm doing a little twist, doing a twist and a push and an unwind. Twist, push, unwind. Twist, push, unwind. Again, my weight is kind of swaying from foot to foot. That's what enables me to make it a nice big movement. If I want to make it really small, I can do that too, keeping my feet together. But the most important thing is that you're using your obliques in that twist. Your obliques are these muscles right here that enable the twisting motion. Make sure you twist before you start your figure eight, that you are really at an angle, and then go. And one mistake that a lot of people make is that they don't see their movement all the way through. They'll kind of go a little bit around and then say, okay, let's do the other side. So it's important. The movement goes for the duration of the movement. Push it all the way. Be careful with it. Another tendency in beginners is to just suddenly, try to do it fast. It's a lot harder to do it slowly, and doing it slowly is how you're going to train your muscles to do it properly. So we're going to start off doing it nice and slow. So let's put on some music and we'll play with those 3 patterns.
Remember to keep that tuck, keep those knees bent, and you're just shifting the weight from side to side, from foot to foot. Remember to keep it as an isolation so your chest is holding as still as possible. And you're dropping the hip and pushing out. Drop, push out. Drop, push out. Keep it fluid, keep every part of the figure eight the same speed. And you can play around with it a little bit by walking around. You'll see that doing the classic figure eight while walking, it's a very literal movement. And once you get the timing down, you'll be able to walk in any direction with that figure eight. So as the weight shifts onto that foot, I'm taking a step. But I'm not letting the step jar my movement at all. I'm keeping it nice and smooth and even. So let's hold it in place again. And switch directions into a Maya. Keep those lower abs engaged. I'm pulling up and pushing around. I'm using my legs, I'm using my abdominal muscles. My feet are planted firmly on the ground. My chest is lifted and open. I'm trying to keep it a nice, even, smooth movement. And my lower back, again, is nice and long. Breathe, relax into it, and switch directions. Try to make the switch nice and fluid. And you're going to switch back and forth between Mayas and classic figure eights. Go at your own pace. Utilize the legs and feet. Let's go into those flat figure eights. You're going to do a nice big twist and a push. Although you do want to stretch it and make it as big as you can, you don't want to take the hip out too far away from the center of your body. So you can create a stretch and create a large movement without it being over-exaggerated where you're losing your form. Go back into those classic figure eights. Stay relaxed in the upper body. Really play with transitioning between all these movements and doing them at all sorts of different speeds. And come into the flat figure eight. Really emphasize that twist. The feet are firm on the ground. Let's go back into those classic figure eights. And let's go into those flat figure eights.
So now we're going to talk about hip circles, and there are 3 different kinds of hip circles, small, medium, and large. So we're going to start off doing the medium-sized hip circles because those are actually the easiest. And now the thing that is really important to keep in mind when you're doing your hip circles is that you want to keep your pelvis tucked. So a medium hip circle is about like this. And now, but if you look at me from the side, when I'm at the front of that hip circle, I'm not arching and pushing my hips forward. I'm actually taking the bend in my knees and creating that illusion that my hips are really being pushed forward. But in reality, I'm really nice and locked in and secure. My lower back is protected by my lower abs. So for the medium-sized hip circles, you want to make sure that your knees are a little bit bent, and you're going to actually pretend like there is a pencil coming down and you're standing on top of a piece of paper, and you want to draw a circle around your feet. And of course, I'm keeping my abs tucked in the back as well and in the front. And I should get a nice stretch as I'm going around. You can't go the other way. And eventually, we'll be traveling with this move, as in some of our combinations. Actually, let's talk about that now. So what I'm going to do is when my hips come forward, my foot will step out. So hips forward, foot out. And when my hips come back, my feet come together. So I can travel. And of course, you can go back the other way. And you can even take it in a little circle. So those are medium hip circles. And next what we're going to do is we're going to work on small hip circles. And so small hip circles should actually be fairly easy because we've already worked on hip squares. I'll remind you the hip squares are when you're hitting all 4 points here, right? And so we're just going to smooth that out. And so this movement, also called an omi, is very dramatic at the front part of the move. You want to really put everything you've got into the front of that movement. It just kind of slides around the back. And it almost looks like you're doing sort of a belly roll or something. You can switch directions. When your hips are to the front, because your abs should be rippling because they are really working to pull everything forward. It's almost like you're doing a sit-up. I think it's more work than a sit-up probably. And it's a nice small little sort of grindy movement, like it's really internal, whereas the medium one is wide and it's out there. This one is like almost like reminds me of a ball and socket joint or something, just rolling around like that. And we'll practice those. Practice switching directions. And remember, don't arch your back too much on the back. That should just be a neutral position. You don't want to pull your hips back because, of course, it's called belly dancing. You want to use the muscles in your belly. When you pull your hips back, you're using your lower back here. And we're not lower back dancing. We're belly dancing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a large hip circle. And a large hip circle can also have sort of a head roll in the middle of it and a hair flip, and it can be a very dramatic move. So I'll demonstrate a large hip circle and then we'll talk about it. So, okay, and another thing that you can do with a large hip circle, you don't have to do that big dip with your head. You can do a dip with your hips. So from here, what we're doing is we're taking a nice wide stance, and I'm going to bend my knees to bring my hips forward to switch legs. And to do the dipping one, I'm just going to bend in half. I'm going to come down the opposite direction that my hips are going. So my hips are being pushed this way, so my head's going to go down this way, and then they're just going to switch places. So now my hip is over here, or my head is over here, and my hip is over there. And so then from here, I'm just going to pull myself back up. So again, a little bit faster. Push it forward and up. Now, without that fancy hair flip, it's just kind of this sort of a movement. So what you're doing is you want to be careful, because when your bottom is way out there and the audience is in front of you, you don't want to just lean over and show your cleavage, or if your back is to them, you don't want to just lean over and show them your butt. So you want to be a little bit careful about how you're placed when you're doing this position. One way to kind of get around that is to cross your arms in front of you for just a little bit of modesty with your upper body when you're in that back position. One thing that I've seen people do, and I really don't like it, is kind of just like wag their bottom at the audience. I would say that's a definite no-no and not to do it. So anyways, the third variation that we can do with these large figure eights is we're coming around to the front, and then again, I showed you at the very beginning, we're just going to dip down as we're bringing our weight to the other side. So let's practice those small, medium, and large hip circles.
We'll start off with those big medium-sized traveling hip circles. And remember, you're stepping when the hips are at the very front and the very back. I'm trying to minimize the arch in my lower back as I come forward by bending those knees. And when you speed it up, it's even more important to have strength in your abdominal area to help you get that movement around. You want it to be nice and controlled. You're using your muscles, not your momentum, to get around. You can take it around in a 360, nice and slow. You can do it nice and fast. Quick little movement. Be sure to always practice in both directions. Really think about what's happening with your feet. Let your feet pace the movement. They're keeping time. It's all incorporated. And as you speed it up, try to minimize the movement in the upper body. And you can take it into those small little omis, those tiny hip circles. They're very internal, they're very small, and I'm using my lower abs to really pull them around in the front. I'm trying to keep them nice and even and nice and small. And I always want to practice them going both directions. You'll definitely find that one direction is going to be easier than the other. Remember to breathe. Remember to keep your posture in your upper body. And for a more advanced challenge, you can do 1.5 omis and switch directions. It's very intensive on the lower abdominal muscles, and you should not be feeling pain in your lower back. If you do, you want to bend your knees more and you want to tuck your lower abs more. And if you're still training yourself to do that, you can take nice stretches in between in the middle of this exercise. We'll take a big hip circle. Notice how the weight is just completely shifting from foot to foot. Practice starting on each side. Play around with the back of that movement. You can dip down into a nice plie, or you can dip your head down for a nice hair flip. Whatever you do, make sure you have your your abdominal muscles engaged and involved in the movement. You're not just throwing your body around. You have complete control over it. You're protecting your back. And when you start playing with traveling with those hip circles again, think about really making it nice and fluid.
All right, so now that we've already drilled all of the basic movements, what we're going to do is we're going to move into the more intermediate level section of the DVD, and that's going to be putting them into combinations. Now, a bit of advice, if you're very new to belly dance and this is your first time trying to put together these sorts of combinations, I would recommend that you don't worry about anything but the foot patterns at first. Once you have the foot patterns, then you can add the hips, and the very last thing that you can add would be the arms. So you can even practice it at a slower pace than we're doing it on the DVD, but keep practicing. At first, sometimes it seems really fast, and then once you've done it a couple of times, it gets a lot easier. And they say it takes about 6 to 8 minutes of practicing something nonstop for it to actually get into your muscle memory anyways. So do go through these exercises, give them a try, and you'll find that they get a lot easier as you practice. So what we're going to do for this first one is we're going to start off and we'll be doing those hip drops. So we're going to go, I won't even worry about the arms yet, we're going drop, kick, drop, sit. Now to do that sit, all I'm doing is I'm doing that drop and I'm just bending both of my legs. So I'm in this sitting position. So again, it's just drop, kick, drop, sit, and then drop, kick, drop, up. And when I go up, I'm just simply lifting my knee up and I'm continuing to do that down movement with my hip. So all that together, I'll put the arms up, but again, don't worry about the arms if you're just getting started. Drop, kick, drop, sit, drop, kick, drop, up. So we're going to do that twice through, and then at the end of the combination, we're going to cross the right foot around the left and unwind, so we're facing the opposite corner as we were just facing, and we're going to do it again on the other hip. So all together, it'll be 5, 6, 7, 8. Drop, kick, drop, sit, drop, kick, drop, lift, drop, kick, drop, sit, drop, kick, drop, turn. Drop, kick, drop, sit, drop, kick, drop, lift, drop, kick, drop, sit, drop, kick, and turn. And so after this turn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be on that original diagonal that we were on. So I'm not facing directly at the audience. I'm on a little diagonal to the left here. And we're going to do hip bumps, but I'm just changing my footwork. And the main thing about this move is the footwork that makes it a little bit different. And so all my foot is doing is just going forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. And my hips are just going with it. Forward, back, forward, back. So I'm going to travel forward for 8 counts, and then I'm going to pivot around doing that same move to each corner of the room. So it'll look like this. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's do that again. I'm going to slow it down. So 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then from here, I'm just going to do an 8 count shimmy. Doing a little flourish with my arms. And then I'm just going to finish up in this position, and we're back to the beginning of the combination with the drop, kick, drop, sit. So we're going to do it twice to music. We'll do it to slow music, and then we'll do it to fast music. But before we do, I'll go through the entire combination one more time, and we'll do it nice and slowly, and I'll count it out. So from here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And start again. So again, the arms in these moves are just framing. So when I'm here, my arms are framing, like so. In the forward back step, I'm just in a neutral position here. And then of course for the shimmy, I'm doing that little arm flourish. So let's go ahead and try it to slow music first. Now we're going to do our combination that involves undulations. So we're going to start off and we're going to have our right toe on the ground, and we're going to do a very fast roll down for 2 counts and roll up for 2 counts. So it's going to look like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So all I'm doing is I'm doing my undulation that we learned, our standard undulation, and then just a little kick. And then the next count is that toe comes back up, and then I'm pushing up from an undulation down to up. It's going to take a little bit of practice. I encourage you to pause the tape and kind of get that into your muscle memory. So again, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the next part, we're going to, on 5, we're going to step onto that right foot, and we're going to do a big hair toss to the reverse. So I'm here, I'm just going to come down, and I'm up over here. So I'm really just switching from this position to this position, right? Except for I'm doing kind of a big hair thing. So I've come here on 8, and as you're coming up, you'll probably want to pull your hair out of your face, so you'll be ending with your hand on your head. I'm just going to put the other hand out, and I'm just going to go 2 slow undulations for 4 counts, and then 4 fast. Right? So again, from the top, our arms are up. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're just going to shimmy for 8 counts while we reset ourselves and get ready to go again. now we're going to do our figure 8 combination. So we're just going to start off doing our classic figure 8s here. So I'm just going to do it for 4 counts, and just our hands are going to be in neutral position. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to keep the same movement with the hips, but I'm going to do a pivot with the feet. And so without adding the hips on at first, it's just 5, 6, 7, 8 with the feet. And so with the hips, I'm doing a little pivot with that figure 8. So all together, we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and from here, we're then going to do 2 figure 8s traveling to the right-hand side. So forgetting any arms or anything, my feet are just going step together, step, right? And I'm just doing 2 figure 8s. 1, 2. And then back the other way. 1, 2. And then I'm just going to do 1 to each direction. 1, 1. And then I'm just going to turn in a 360, not doing any figure 8s, but doing a shoulder shimmy to here. So again, what we have so far is we're having our arms in neutral position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then our arms are going to come up as we do our traveling. 1, 2 figure 8s. 1, 2 figure 8s as the arms come down. Then 1 to each side. Shoulder shimmies. From here, we're going to take a small step out. You never want to step really wider than your hip width in belly dance. There are very few exceptions, but anyways, we're not going to. And you're going to go into your flat figure 8s. But we're going to add a little bit of extra something to them. And so we're just going to be bouncing as we do them. And if you just look at my feet here, I'm just bouncing by lifting my heels up off the ground. Bounce, 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 right? So in order to get that bounce in the figure 8, I'm just going bounce, bounce. And I'm just doing 1 loop to each side. It's an 8 count thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to do 8 counts of Mayas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I go back to the beginning of the combination. And so the beginning of the combination is those figure 8s. And so I switch my Mayas into figure 8s and go from there. So let's go through it all again one time with just the counting, and then we'll do it to the music. We'll do it slow and then fast. So from the top, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to the beginning. One variation of this combination that you can do to simplify it a little bit is to slow down those figure 8s at the very beginning and the Mayas at the very end. So as I taught you, we were doing 4 of each, but when we do it to the slow music at the beginner level, we'll just do 2 of each. And as you get better, you can throw more in there and speed them up a little bit. So now we're going to do the hip circle combination, and we're going to start off with our medium hip circles, and we're going to travel to the right for 8 counts. The hands are going to go up here. So again, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when we hit 8, you'll notice your weight is going to be on the right. The hands are going to then come down. I'm pausing on 8, and then I'm going to go in the other direction with the hips on 1. But before I do anything with the hips, I'm just going to go over the footwork. I'm just going to turn around in a circle. I'm going to start off with my left foot, and I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So I've just come around. I'm here, and I'm going to put a hip circle in the counterclockwise direction on top of it. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you'll notice the weight is going to be over on the left foot. From here, we're going to do a large hip circle. We're going to always start our large hip circles coming forwards. In Egyptian style, they don't actually tend to do that as much, but we're going to do that now. So from here, we're going to bring it forward and then push it up, and my weight is going to end up on the left. The last thing I'm going to do is just 3 snake arms so that I end up with my weight on the right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the entire combination going to the right. So we're here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, we'll try it with slow music, and then we'll try it with fast.